You asked, I listened. Today's episode is all about your questions, the ones you've sent in, the ones you've debated with friends, the ones you've been dying to hear answered. Let's dive into a full Ask Me Anything edition of Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Pirates, your daily podcast covering all things Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. Today we're doing something special, an all Ask Me Anything episode. I get these emails all the time that I sometimes ignore, but I archive, and I try to go back to them and I forget sometimes. They've been piling up. It's time to do one of these. And I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad we're doing it. These are always my favorite episodes. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So before we get into questions, I know I kind of said they'd all be questions. There's a little bit of news I got to get to. And honestly, I want to digest it a little bit more before I talk too much about it. So it's probably better left as a line item in an episode. John Baker, who started with the Pirates as the director of coaching and player development in 2020, was promoted to VP of performance last fall. And I use promoted lightly. I think this guy fell up. Okay. It's no longer with the team. It's described as a mutual parting of ways. We will talk about that a little bit more tomorrow after I've had a minute to kind of digest this and give some people I talk to a chance to talk to me before I start running my mouth about what this means and why it may mean whatever. But this was a stretch of a hire, I think, to begin with. John Baker was a mental skills coach, and not really a long tenured one with the Chicago Cubs. And then he came here and he was in a much expanded role, put in from mental skills director to director of coaching and player development. It was a big jump, and I don't think it went well. And I think he was promoted out of it to make room for others like Mr. Horowitz, who just left, to step up into some of the responsibilities he did carry. I think this is a beginning of a reimagining of how that front office functions, and it could very well be too little, too late, but it is what it is as well. Again, I think I'm going to have a lot more to say about that tomorrow, but for now, John Baker's out. That's not an insignificant move. We'll see what I think tomorrow. I'm going to read up as much as I can on a few things too before we discuss it in full. First question here is really kind of split into a few questions because it's a lot to digest. So first is why is Edward Florentino ranked ahead of Termar Johnson, Rafael Flores, and Nick York when those guys are so much closer to Major League Baseball? And this is a really good question, and I think a pretty common misconception when it comes to these prospect lists. I guess it goes back to why these prospect lists exist. And the best thing I can tell you is these are evaluations of what somebody's top of the mountain looks like. Okay. For the most part, they are an estimation of how high they think you can possibly climb. And sometimes that thought gets combined in with where your floor is. Let's say like you're the type of player where the evaluators are watching your game develop and they think to themselves, the absolute worst this kid could be is this type of player. So let's say it's a one WAR player. So they think your worst case scenario with this prospect is that they're going to be a 1 WAR player at their low water mark. And they have a capability in their estimation of potentially developing into a 5 WAR player. That's a decent span, okay? But that entire span is positive. And if you were just on track to develop somebody that you were pretty sure was going to be a 1 WAR player, say there's no range at all, it's like this is where this kid's going to be. We know it now. Like this would be a guy entering his second year of AAA. You know where this guy is. Let's say you have him projected as a 1 WAR player. Well, you're probably not going to be a super high prospect because a 1 WAR player is not a superstar. But it's a better than average player that anybody, when they're standing in front of a draft board beyond the first round, would take with a gigantic smile on their face. Okay, so the rankings are kind of based on that loose scale. They don't have a lot to do with how long it's going to take you to get there. You could take somebody on the international draft. They finally peak up like Edward Florentino into the actual like ranks that you can pay more attention to, unlike the DSL or whatever. You finally start reaching like the Gulf Coast League, and there's a little bit more visibility. They're wearing the Pirates colors, you know. You pay a little bit more attention to what's going on at that point. He's 18, he's got the body frame, the projectability. He gets ranked higher because the expectation is that this kid's ceiling is gigantic. In fact, if it wasn't so heavily weighted by where his floor could be, he wouldn't be 5. He'd be higher than that. That's what makes Connor Griffin the 1-1 in the entire world, because his ceiling and his floor are both way, way above projection. In other words, you start getting into that can't miss territory with a prospect. Okay. And you certainly can miss on a 1-1. It happens. But, and I don't mean a 1-1 selection. I mean, once you've been selected and baseball decides that you're the number 1 prospect in all of the land, they don't miss on that a lot, is the point. And it's usually because they factored in that range it's way up there. You're going to be pretty happy with the player is what they're saying. Next question here. Will the Pirates protect Tony Blanco Jr. on the 40-man roster this December? A lot of other podcasts have been mentioning that they would be mad if he wasn't. I haven't heard that, but mainly because Tony Blanco Jr. doesn't have to be protected this year. He has to be protected in December of 2026. So I don't think he's going to be protected. I also don't think he should be. I think it's a little premature. Like, he's the 30th ranked prospect in this system. He has a lot of raw power. He's looked great in the Arizona Fall League. He really has. So has Esmeralyn Valdez. That's a guy who will absolutely be protected on the 40-man, I would believe. Mostly because he's in AA. He's probably going to start in AAA. There's a good chance somebody would take a shot at swiping him. Nobody's going to take Tony Blanco Jr. from you. First, they literally can't next year. Second, he's in single A. He's kind of got a strikeout problem. He really does. It's something he's worked on as the season's gone on, and I think done well with. The power has come out a little bit more too. That's expected. But he's very young. I just don't think he's quite ready to have that conversation about yet. I liked sending him to the AFL, but a lot of that's because he hasn't really stayed very healthy. So it's kind of an avoidance there to make sure you're getting him some at bats. I mean, the second part of your question was, could he be a DH option in 2020? No, flatly no. He's got some work left to do. He really does. Should the Pirates use internal talent more aggressively if they're not going to spend? Yes, they should. But Blanco isn't calling for aggressiveness. Blanco would be calling for downright foolishness. He's just way too far away. There's a lot of development that needs to happen yet with him. Plus, he plays first base. We kind of don't need another one of those right this second, right? Let's take a break. Hope my voice can recover while we're taking it, because when we come back, I got a lot more questions to go through. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. The new Stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists. It's the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves your lineup from a loss. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Apologize for the voice still. The bug is with me a little bit. I'm trying to strategically pause when I need to and take a swig of water, but bear with me. I know it sounds a little hoarse. Some spicy questions here in segment 2 that we got to get to. First one is, will we see more fan protests this year, especially if nutting doesn't change course? I can't imagine that you wouldn't see more protests this year. I can't imagine them being a whole lot more aggressive than they were last year. I felt like they were pretty present. I mean, flyovers and billboards and, shirts and showing up at events. I honestly felt like they tried and marched and pretty decent numbers. Showed up at Pirates Fest. Thought they caused some disruption there. I don't believe that visibility is the problem. I mean, I think people know we're mad. You know what I mean? I'm certainly not discouraging people from doing it. Do I, in a way, let me just kind of twist this question. In a way, hope that they do, because apathy is worse. If people stop even trying, then, and that doesn't mean you have to agree with their attempt. I mean, I don't have to jump on board or join some campaign or protest myself. But if people stop caring or trying, well, then that's apathy. And I can't think of anything worse for a sports franchise than apathy. So, and I think sometimes too, there are some fans that they want to just see things with such rose-colored glasses that, I think every once in a while, how can I put this other than, I think every once in a while, blue sky people need to come over to X to see what's going on and vice versa. You shouldn't live in a bubble. You should see what others think. You should hear what others think. Yeah, I think there's probably going to remain being protests. I really do. I can't imagine. Nothing's changed. There was absolutely no reaction to any of it. I'd imagine there has to be more of it this year. It just stands to reason, right? Here's another one. Is Pirates Fest happening this year? They haven't announced it yet. Will they change the live Q&A format after last year's rowdy session? I mean, I was at that session last year. I don't remember it being all that rowdy. There was a little chant to sell the team. Yet I think it took about 3 or 4 minutes for it to kind of really subside. Um, right or wrong, Greg Brown pretty much shut it down. And at the end of the day, I think as much as people talk, when you're right there in front of people, listen, most people are pretty uncomfortable being ignorant. and, and and I think these things tend to kind of be quiet and over fast for the most part. And if they're not, they get real uncomfortable and swing to the detriment of whoever is the aggressor. So I don't think it'll get much more out of hand. I certainly can't think of a way for them to change that format. As it is, they set it up last year to take in screened questions, which ticked a lot of people off because that's not the spirit of that thing. And then they ended up taking live questions too, which at least made people feel heard. So if anything, don't change that aspect. Go back to just letting people ask their question. You're much better off just letting people vent at you. Yeah, when we talk about not getting trapped in a bubble, those are people I'm talking about too. They need to not be trapped in the bubble of patting each other on the back. I think they just huddle in a circle and just pat each other on the back for how good of a job they're doing sometimes. And they need to pop their head up out of the sand every once in a while and see it too. So I hope so. And as far as Pirates Fest not being announced, I don't believe it has been either. I certainly haven't heard that it wasn't happening. I personally would like them to move it back to PNC Park. I think it was more of a special thing to be able to walk on the field a little bit, to be able to go and see the batting cages. And, if anything, I'd like them to do it at PNC Park and open it up a little more. Let us see the locker rooms and whatnot. Let's really get into things, show off those private booths you're always trying to sell, I do show off the ballpark because the ballpark has been the star of this team for the longest time now. I like it way better than the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. No offense, but the venue feels too stale for baseball to me. I'd rather be in a place that I consider a cathedral of baseball while I'm doing all those events than walking around a convention center. And maybe I'm jaded. I do a ton of trade shows for my job. So chances are I'm just sick of trade shows and it feels too much like one to me. I'd much prefer it move back to the stadium if they do it. I cannot imagine them canceling it again. There was such a backlash, even though they had COVID to fall back on. They took an extra year coming back out of it. And then when they did come back out of it, they moved it back to the convention center. A lot of people were really excited about that move. Maybe I'm in the minority about that. I want it to move back to the stadium, especially since the original reason they said that they didn't have it again after COVID there before relaunching it was because they were doing work at PNC Park and didn't want to have it open to fans. Well, that's not happening right now, so let's get back to the ballpark. I think it drew more. I think it drew more kids. It made more sense for kids. And then the autograph sessions, if they do that again, they got to do better. They just got to do better. For one thing, autographs and attaining autographs has become a profession now. It is lost all of its soul. We have to pre-schedule these autograph sessions, and then you see people pull up with these binders full of baseball cards and bags full of posters and bunch of jerseys that they want, that they've got for it's a profession. These are resellers, like, and they're scouring these things and getting advance tickets somehow, some way before other people. And most real fans are getting like either priced or timed out of getting an opportunity to meet these players and shake their hand and whatnot. I can understand having some guys like be exclusive, you know, 4 or 5 guys or whatever you want to do, but I suggest they do a lot of what they do in spring training and just have some sessions where guys meet up along a fence line or something and just sign random things for people. That can get taken up by those professional autograph seekers too, but not as easily. And especially not if you do it at multiple places around the ballpark and don't really announce it. Make it more organic that you might run into a player and get their autograph. You know, find a way to make it a little bit more. And I understand for security reasons why you can't just have them sauntering about. But places where you have that netting up and whatnot, make it possible for players to like walk up and talk to fans that are lining the ballpark. They won't all be there if the events are going on. There's so many creative ways they could make Pirates Fest better for the fans. The best thing they could do, though, is to have an actual real player acquisition worth celebrating with everybody. That's something that hasn't happened in a long time. One more question here before we take the next break. How am I supposed to stay positive with Ben Cherington still in charge? Well, let me define my job as I see it to you. I don't see it as my job to make you excited or make you stay positive. That is just not my goal. I want you to think for yourselves. I want to give you information. I'll tell you what I think happily, but I'm not telling you what to think. I mean, if people don't disagree with me, what would we talk about? If everyone just nodded along to everything I said, what kind of a discussion would that be? I'm not here to make you feel positive. And if you can't do it because you can't see past one person, well, that makes you just like half of the country every time any president is elected. You have half the country that, for whatever reason, can't move on and live their life and realize that it doesn't affect them. Not as much as they think anyway. I mean, that's life. You can either get past it or you can't. You're either a person who can or you are a person who can't. I'm not happy about it. I think I've made myself pretty clear, but I'm still going to watch baseball next year. Just like I'm watching two teams I could care less about beat the hell out of each other in the World Series right now and having a great time because I like baseball. That's how I'll see past it and remain positive because also, I'm going to have a pretty damn good life one way or another, whether the Pirates win or not. So, yeah, I mean, that's how I'll do it. I don't know how you will. I hope you do. I hope you do. I really do. Let's take another break. We'll be back. A few more questions. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter big comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game interesting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates Ask Me Anything episode. Love doing these. Thank you so much. These are some really good questions. And make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Comments anytime you pop them in there, they go into my archive and they could make a show just like this or a segment. Let's go. I've heard you say before that you were against MLB expansion. Are you entirely against it or just now? And which U.S. city could realistically win under current setup? Oh, wow. I really like this question. I have said I'm against expansion because right now I am. I just don't think that there's enough talent to go around. I really don't, and I think if you added two more teams that you know spend even in like the bottom half, I think you're just kind of adding in more fodder to get beaten on and spreading the talent out even a little thinner. I just don't think now's the time. I think MLB needs to get their economic house in order before they do that. That said, in the spirit of your question, because you asked for me to kind of put that aside, no, I'm not against MLB expansion entirely. I would be open to it. Which U.S. city could realistically win under current setup? So if they remain no salary cap, everything stays the same. Um, boy, Nashville uh might have enough of a pull. It's growing enough, and they might be able to pull a little bit from the surrounding area, and they might be able to steal some fans of some other teams just because of proximity. Um, and they do have a nice fan base for the Sounds there. I mean, so Nashville maybe. I just don't believe in Portland. Um, I don't. I I don't. They have the basketball team. I kind of think it's all they can handle. Like I don't think even the NHL could expand into Portland. So I just don't kind of add them to the list. I don't think Charlotte's a big enough metro area. And I just spent some time in Charlotte this year. I don't see where anybody thinks that's going to be a major league market. There's no way. There's just no way. I don't see that. And I know they hold an NFL team, but an NFL team is one ticket 8 weeks out of the year. You can kind of pull that from the entire greater North Carolina and even South Carolina, area. Maybe even into lower Virginia. You might be able to, you know what I mean? I think for the NFL you can get that done. For Major League Baseball, I just don't see that. Yeah, if you wanted to expand without a cap and you wanted the team to have a good chance, I think you would need to look into places like Mexico City. And I mean, I really mean that. Like Mexico City is probably first they're a city that would absolutely eat it up. It's also one of those mile high cities, right? Just like Colorado. So, you'd probably have an altitude problem there too. But they've played a couple games down there. You've seen them start doing that. I think they had one in Brazil this year. I think that's probably the next expansion. I don't see Western Europe necessarily. I know they're trying London, but I just don't see that. And I think it would be counterproductive to try to move over to Japan because right now Major League Baseball is actively stealing their best players as soon as their contracts are up. I don't know why I'd want to go compete over in Asia. So to me, it's either up or down. You either go back up and see if you can make a go of Vancouver or I don't think Edmonton would work out weather-wise. I guess you could in a dome, but I don't know. There's not much in Edmonton really to support a Major League Baseball team either. Vancouver, you might get away with it, but I would imagine a lot of Vancouver people are Seattle fans at this point. So you'd have a little bit of a war of winning guys over. Montreal is always on the board. I think a lot of baseball purists would love to see Montreal get a team again, but I think a lot of things would probably have to change as far as economic structure for Canada to be involved, if only because their dollar is so different. I think it hurts Toronto a lot of the time as far as contracts go. And the NHL, it kills them because they don't technically have the same cap dollars as everybody else, if you understand economics, which I'm not trying to teach you. If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. Does a salary cap guarantee championships? Hint, I'm a Steelers fan. They do not. Well, no, they don't. And I don't believe I've ever made that argument. In fact, I'm sure I've made the opposite. I don't know why Steelers fans have to be extra angry with Pirates fans. I'm sorry for liking every team in town. That's on me. I know we're not allowed to, but I do. Listen, I understand the differences in the leagues. I understand what salary caps do and don't do. They don't guarantee anything except for a fair starting point, and the only thing separating you from other teams is your ability to hire an executive who's not a moron, and then coach them well. So if you do your job well, there's absolutely nothing outside of that gets in the way. That's what a salary cap system's about. It certainly doesn't make you smart. Again, see Cleveland Browns. That should be popular with you, Steelers fan who's mad. Should we have more faith in Ben Cherington after the Spencer Horwitz trade? That is a spicy one, my friend. Well, it's exactly what we've asked him to do, right? Trade pitching talent for hitting talent. Now, Spencer Horwitz is not going to be everybody's answer for success yet. There are some people like me that, I like the signs I'm seeing. I like the direction he's headed. I think that he showed a lot this year after coming back from injury. I really like his trajectory. I'm very excited about how he moves forward, truthfully. I think he's going to wind up being a pretty fabulous first baseman here for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I try intentionally to not get excited about him, but I really think he's going places. I like his swing. It's just so simple. That's one of the things that I liked most. Do I think that should change the way that you see Ben Cherington heading into this year? Well, not entirely. If we're going based on evidence, I've got a lot more evidence that I don't like his eye for picking up hitting as much as this one shows me that he does have the eye. I will say this was a very good one. It gives me a little bit of faith that it can be done. It's exactly the type of thing they should be targeting. But it's probably the type of thing really they should have been targeting in 22 and 23. And that's when you're going for guys that still need a little bit more development. At this point, to tack on to a team, I need somebody that's not going to come with question marks. I need somebody that's going to come with okay, there's a history there. This guy's done this 3-4 years now. He's actually coveted. Somebody wants him. That's the type of moves that you should be making now. Those are the types of acquisitions. It's a different type of requirement for your ability to pick up on skill. I think we're asking a guy to do magic tricks, and we've already decided that he's a poor magician. You get what I mean? And I don't think what he needs to do right now really requires that. I think he just needs to be straightforward and aggressive and unafraid of losing talent. You have to do it. You have to give it up, and you have to get it. You have to take a swing. And here's the thing with Ben Cherington. I'll just finish on this. He coaches. His batting philosophy is basically a passive one. That's what they appreciate offensively, and we see what that produces. I think he has a lot of those same tendencies when it comes to trades and signings. And again, I think the results speak for themselves. I don't know that I can expect a guy that I see kind of take a whole lot of things with that passive approach is going to turn on his ear and all of a sudden be super aggressive this year, regardless of where we think he should be on the hot seat scale. Thanks to everyone who sent in questions. This show doesn't work without your passion and curiosity. Whether you're frustrated, hopeful, or just trying to make sense of it all, I'm here to talk Pirates baseball with you. We're serious about Pirates baseball because somebody has to be. Let's go, Bucks.